Hi, I am Dr. Julia Nevárez. The goal of this presentation is to examine the citizen science and engaged translational science frameworks, as well as participatory action research that advance interdisciplinary research to place community interest at the forefront of knowledge, co-production, and co-creation. Recently, there has been a renewed interest on fostering collaboration between scientists and citizens to produce new knowledge that integrates scientific inquiry with societal engagement. This approach seeks to cultivate a cadre of community competent researchers who recognize the value of participatory knowledge production. Participatory research, citizen science, and engaged translational science represent intersecting methodologies that underscore community involvement in research design, execution, as well as the effective dissemination of applied research findings. I am the principal investigator of the National Science Foundation Bill and Broaden program at Kean University, and among the different research supported by the award, one area of focus has been collaborative research among different disciplines, STEM and social sciences specifically. Science that involves participants in the research process, that applies strategies to communicate research findings effectively, and that considers participation broadly understood at the level of the community, have become increasingly necessary and beneficial to tackle a myriad of research topics. I am referring to citizen science, engaged translational science, and participatory action research, respectively. Each emerge from specific fields, different specific fields, but there are conceptual and methodological overlaps. As you can see on the screen, engaged translational science emerged from public health, clinical research, community-based participatory research, education, environmental health, behavioral economics, data science and informatics, etc. Citizen science, on the other hand, evolved from environmental sciences and ecology, astronomy and space, medicine and health, computer science and engineering, archaeology, history, statistics, psychology, genetics. They all use this approach. And participatory action research, actually, my bachelor's degree is from the University of Puerto Rico. And there I completed 1 year of the master's program in social community psychology. Those were my first steps in becoming acquainted more fully with participatory action research in the fields of education, health, social work, community psychology, criminal justice, disability research, youth development, international development, among other fields that also use this method. When we talk about citizen science, we are referring to an active engagement of the general public in scientific research tasks. It is not only the way of thinking about how to go about to conduct science with communities, but it's also inviting communities to also be part of the data collection and analysis, public participation in scientific research and knowledge production more broadly, engagement of the public with scientific data collection, as I mentioned, and engaging from the perspective of the researcher with local communities with key scientific issues and data relevant to the field. What are some of the limitations that have been identified? And these are just a few of them. Data quality control and the timing of data collection. These are very complex processes when you involve so many different stakeholders. One example of this research could be the integration of social and biophysical science by doing social scientific research on an aspect of an environmental problem as part of an interdisciplinary research effort. Engaged translational science refers to and encourages scientific collaborations that benefit both science and society, and opens up the processes of scientific knowledge creation, evaluation, and communication to societal actors beyond the professional scientific community. It is also part of engaging in dialogue that provides a scientific perspective to community members, media, and policymakers about salient issues. What are some of the limitations? Power relations in terms of the researchers and the community. Who owns the data? Data ownership. Political impact of the research. Time and institutional constraints such as the allocation of human and infrastructural resources for the research. This is speaking more from the institutions that support the scientists. The need to create a workplace culture that supports and rewards engagement. The relaxing of publication requirements to consider community engagement as part of what is the evaluation for promotion and tenure, for instance. To communicate funding opportunities from institutions and organizations that support this kind of research, and to develop communities of practice that value and provide support for this kind of research to advance the knowledge that is produced through this approach. One example of research using this approach could be connecting scientific research using the report card method, which is a set of steps that involves the community in trying to articulate what the research issue is and what are the possible solutions. I will get in more detail a little bit later about that. For human benefits regarding, for instance, beach erosion, with an emphasis on translating science and scientific findings to a larger audience. How do we communicate findings and share those with people outside of the research community and within? But here we are making the attempt to get involved more with communities. Participatory action research, on the other hand, seeks to understand and improve the world by changing it. Collective and self-reflective inquiry that researchers and participants undertake. It is a reflective process linked to action taken into consideration, history, culture, and local context by empowering people to take control over their lives. It is a process of data collection, reflection, action, data collection, reflection, action, and in this regard, it's more similar to grounded theory, if you're familiar with that approach. Some of the limitations: communities could feel overburdened by conducting research work and by having to find solutions to collective problems. One example of this research: nurses and patients collaboratively identifying barriers to medication adherence in a nursing home, for instance, develop and implement a new medication management plan, and then evaluate its effectiveness with ongoing feedback from both groups. And when we look at the three approaches together, we can identify some commonalities and some differences. Some of the commonalities is that they tend to be participatory, these three approaches. They include multi-stakeholders, different stakeholders. There is an emphasis on lived experience as part of knowledge production, and this is very relevant because it's the acknowledgement that we all have knowledge about the way that we live in the environments that we live. And it tends to also include a multi-method approach, all of these perspectives. Some of the differences are the fields from which they emerge, as I discussed earlier. But some of the conceptual similarities is the notion of co-production, of co-creation of knowledge, of actionable scientific knowledge that is co-produced and co-created between scientists and the people from the community who participate in the research, and then some of the ways in which communities can also facilitate the data collection of any specific research topic. Could be participatory mapping, community remote sensing, or locally or community-based monitoring. These are just a few examples to give you an idea. In terms of collaboration with communities, participation in collaborative assessments is one example. That it is dialogical, meaning that there is dialogue in that participation, and that the communication of research has been really supported with the availability of information technology infrastructures such as phones and sensors for gathering and reporting data, the internet for sharing data, and cloud storage for gathering and reporting that data. That has facilitated many of these approaches. There is also the application to policy development of the findings from the research, findings to inform policy, human informatics, data analytics and visualization, the use of images and graphics that can also help the data collection and the interpretation of findings with the researchers and the communities. And then, for instance, the report cards that I mentioned before to be developed and shared with communities. Basically, what is the big picture? What do we measure? What is healthy, if that is the relevant issue that we are interested in? How does it add up? What is the story that the data is telling? And here is the link in case you wish to obtain more information about the report cards. And this is a selected bibliography in case you are interested in this topic. Please feel free to reach out to me if you wish to continue the conversation about citizen science, engaged translational science, and participatory action research within the world in which we are living. These local and community engagements, I think, are going to become more and more relevant in terms of how do we produce the knowledge that we need to face the challenges that we encounter in our society. And I also have to acknowledge that the images were developed using AI, DALL-E specifically, and the reference is included as well. Thank you for your attention. See you.